Imagine finding out that the reason you didn't get your absolute dream job, the one you spent literal weeks preparing for, researching the company, tailoring your entire experience, wasn't because you lacked the skills.
Right. It wasn't because you fumbled the interview or anything.
Exactly. It's just because an automated parsing algorithm couldn't properly read the formatting of your PDF. Or, maybe the parser got confused by a slightly non-standard job title from your last startup,
Right.
and it just silently dropped your application into a digital abyss.
Which is, sadly, something that happens every single day.
It's terrifying.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the sheer scale of it is just staggering. We have built these massive invisible filtering machines over the last decade, primarily just to handle the sheer volume of online applicants.
Yeah, because everybody applies to everything online now.
Right. But in doing so, we've inadvertently created a landscape defined by this massive trust deficit. Candidates feel just entirely disconnected from the evaluation of their own worth.
You throw your perfectly crafted resume into a void. You hit submit on some sterile white-labeled web portal, and then you just wait in silence.
And waiting in that silence is miserable.
It really is. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because today, we are doing a deep dive into a system that claims to flip that entire model completely on its head.
Completely on its head, yeah.
A system called BI. That's BAIR, or Brehon AI Recruitment. We're going to walk you through the exact step-by-step candidate onboarding journey from the very first hello to the final hiring decision.
And we're mapping this journey using a genuinely fascinating stack of internal blueprints that govern the system.
Yeah, these documents are wild.
They are. We've got our hands on their internal character Bible, this highly detailed content architecture matrix, a voice specification manual, and a technical notebook discovery report.
And just to be clear, these aren't like marketing brochures, right?
No, not at all. These are the literal operational doctrines dictating how the AI must behave. It's the internal law.
So our mission today is to take you, the listener, directly through what they call the Be Hired workflow.
Right.
We really want to demystify this often incredibly intimidating world of AI recruitment. We're going to look under the hood at the intake process, the screening mechanisms, the human decision-making loop, and the final audit.
Because what is so genuinely surprising about these sources, at least to me, is how BAIR's absolute, uncompromising obsession with rigid standards and governance actually makes the typically stressful job-seeking process feel, well, unexpectedly smooth.
Smooth, fair, and reassuring, which are not words you usually associate with automated hiring.
Not at all. But the creators of this system clearly recognized the psychological toll of that digital void you mentioned earlier.
I had to.
Yeah, they didn't just build a slightly more accurate algorithm, they engineered a completely different digital environment for the candidate to exist within while they're being evaluated.
It's like a masterclass in combining behavioral psychology with strict regulatory compliance.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's walk through that door. Let's look at the very first interaction you have as a candidate, before we even get into the heavy mechanics of how your resume is parsed or, how your skills are mathematically scored. We have to look at the room you're standing in.
And the persona that's greeting you.
Exactly. Because as you said, it sets the psychological baseline for everything that follows.
And that baseline is radically different from the corporate norm. When you engage with BAIR, you are not met by a generic, floating chatbot icon in the corner of your screen.
No little smiling speech bubble.
Right. You aren't staring at a blank white screen with a spinning loading wheel either. You are placed in a specific environment called the Executive Lodge, which is nested inside their larger DeVito's operating system.
And you are greeted by a very specific character.
You are.
So BAIR stands for Brehon AI Recruitment. But the persona you actually interact with is called the governed bear. It's literally an anthropomorphic brown bear.
Yes, it is.
Now, I have to stop right here and just push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when I first read the character Bible, my immediate thought was, isn't an anthropomorphic bear a bit, I don't know, patronizing?
How so?
Well, if I'm a senior executive or like a highly specialized engineer applying for a serious role, I don't really want to be greeted by a cartoon mascot.
Hi.
Why not just build a clean, minimalist, Apple-style interface?
Well, see, that is the exact instinct most enterprise software developers have, and it usually results in interfaces that feel cold and transactional.
True.
But the internal documentation addresses this head-on. The character Bible explicitly forbids the bear from being cartoonish.
Wait, it actually used that word.
It does. The visual cues are painstakingly deliberate. They describe a knitted brow mesh, an expressive wide-eye sclera, and a mock closed knit fur texture.
Wow.
Yeah, and he doesn't wear a suit unless it's a specific executive board context. His default attire is a premium black athletic tracksuit.
They even detail his shoes, right?
Yes, clean, white-soled sneakers with a micro-scale sole.
It's just so specific.
Mm,
But they are absolutely adamant about the tone. One of the binding guardrails in the documentation is, quote, never goofy.
right.
The bear has a steady gaze, often with arms crossed, projecting what the developers term quiet authority.
And if you look at this through the lens of human-computer interaction, or HEI, it is brilliant behavioral design.
How so?
Well, the woodland metaphor, something rooted, patient, seasonal, is the psychological opposite of the frantic, high-stress, hyper-competitive corporate rat race.
Oh, that makes sense.
By placing the interaction in a firelit lodge, the system is actively working to lower your cognitive load. In a minimalist, sterile interface, you feel like you're being interrogated by a machine.
Like you're in a white interrogation room.
Exactly. But in the lodge, you feel like you're having a conversation with a seasoned mentor.
And his opening line to you isn't a command. It's not like upload resume here or fill out form. The greeting is explicitly scripted to be an invitation. It says, what brings you to the woods today? Looking for work, looking for talent, learning, exploring.
And as a job seeker, you choose the be hired path. It gives you immediate agency.
Which is so rare.
Very rare. We also have to examine the audio delivery here because the voice specification document is just as meticulous as the visual modeling.
Oh, the voice specs are fascinating.
They really are. It dictates a very specific pacing for the text-to-speech engine, a mid-tempo, 135 to 150 words per minute.
Okay, so for context, normal conversational speech is often much faster, right? Sometimes up around 160 to 180 words per minute.
Exactly. This slower, unhurried cadence is designed to project calm stability.
The specification sheet says he speaks in short, declarative sentences. No hype, no exclamation points. They actually write this phrase, which I love. Emotion in the doctrine. Warmth is real but rationed.
Warmth is real but rationed. It's such a specific directive.
I find that so interesting. He isn't trying to be your overly enthusiastic best friend, and he definitely isn't trying to sell you a dream.
No, in fact, one of the hard rules is never desperate, never salesy. Invites, never chases.
Which raises an important question for anyone looking at this system. Why invest so much engineering capital into building a premium athleisure bear with a mathematically precise 140 word per minute voice synthesis just to accept a job application?
It seems like overkill, right?
Yeah, totally.
But the answer lies in the system's foundational awareness that AI is fundamentally intimidating. The developers know that candidates are, rightfully, highly suspicious of algorithms making economic decisions about their lives.
Because the stakes are your actual livelihood. Paying your mortgage, feeding your family. It's not a game.
Exactly. So this calming persona isn't a marketing gimmick. It is a highly engineered, deliberate friction reducer designed to make an intensely governed, incredibly complex system feel approachable.
It's about establishing a psychological baseline of trust before the system asks you to hand over a single piece of your professional data.
Because think about the physical tension you hold in your shoulders when you're filling out a standard applicant tracking form.
Oh, I hate those.
You're sweating over whether your job descriptions have the exact right keywords, worrying that a machine is going to reject you instantly because of a typo.
Yeah, or like an arbitrary formatting error.
Right. Contrast that with the psychological comfort of being welcomed to a fireside lodge by this unhurried, transparent guide.
It immediately signals to you, the candidate, like, we are doing things differently. We are not rushing you. We're not treating you like a raw data point.
And that trust-first approach is the necessary bridge to the actual heavy lifting. Because once you're comfortable in the lodge and you've elected to walk through that be hired door, the operational engine spins up.
Right. Which brings us to the first actual stage of the workflow intake and the privacy shield.
Okay, so you are in the door, you have been greeted. Now the system needs to understand who you are, what you can do, and where you fit.
During this intake stage, the system gathers what the documentation calls candidate intelligence. It's evaluating your market signals, your historical experience, and your specific skill sets. And this is where the AI really takes over.
The foundational doctrine governing this stage is explicitly stated in the Notebook Discovery Report. It says, Effort does not scale. Systems do.
Effort does not scale.
Right. They view their AI not merely as a piece of SaaS software that you buy a license for, but as, quote, labor you manage.
Labor you manage. I want to highlight that because it implies a totally different architecture.
It does.
It means the AI is functioning like a hyper-diligent analyst, doing the mind-numbing administrative work of reading, parsing, and structurally understanding the nuances of your professional background.
Exactly.
And this is a massive operational pivot from the industry standard, there is a non-negotiable guardrail in place right at the point of data ingestion.
Arguably the most critical guardrail for you as the candidate. The system is governed by a strict rule within its data pipeline. It must never expose candidate PII, personally identifiable information, to the evaluation layers of the system.
Okay, let's just look at how wildly different this is from the norm.
It's huge.
Usually your name, your home address, your personal email, your phone number, the specific years you attended university, all of that is intrinsically tied to your application file from the very first second.
Right, it's all baked in together.
It's all visible to the recruiters, the hiring managers, and the algorithm simultaneously.
But the BAIR system utilizes an entirely different data architecture. The candidate intelligence engine feeds concepts into the evaluation system, never raw, identifiable records.
Concepts. How does that work?
Well, it essentially uses advanced natural language processing to extract the core essence of your professional value. So, the specific technical skills you possess, the financial scale of the projects you've managed, the software tools you're proficient in. It takes those extracted concepts and maps them to a standardized global skill ontology while actively stripping away and vaulting your personal identity.
Wait, okay, I need to play devil's advocate here for a second. Because if I'm the candidate and I am hearing that an AI is reading my intake and extracting concepts instead of just passing along my actual resume, my immediate fear is data loss.
Naturally.
How do I know the AI isn't just hallucinating? What if my previous job was at a weirdly structured startup where I was like the director of first impressions, but I actually handled all the regional logistics?
Right, a vanity title.
Yeah. How do I know the AI won't just misunderstand that title and silently throw me in the trash because it didn't extract the logistics concept?
See, that is the exact fear every single job seeker has when they hear the letters AI.
Yeah, it's a huge anxiety.
They picture a fragile algorithm that breaks the moment it encounters non-standard data. And it is precisely why BAIR's underlying infrastructure is so vital to understand here.
Of course.
You have to look at their mantra. Governance is not red tape. It is the management layer every system requires. The AI parsing your resume does not act autonomously in a vacuum.
It's not just guessing.
No, it operates strictly under a governance infrastructure called the Davincia Plus Standard, or DVA, which is enforced by their Arios engine.
The Arios engine, right? The documents refer to that as an audit and evidence engine, don't they?
They do.
How does that actually solve my fear of a glitchy rejection, though?
Because Arios demands evidence over assertion. In standard AI systems, the model might just output a probability score like, this candidate is a 42% match.
Right.
That is an assertion. The Arios engine does not allow the AI to simply assert a score. If the AI maps your experience to a specific conceptual requirement of the role, it must mathematically link that extracted concept back to the specific reconstructible text in your intake.
Oh.
Yeah, it cannot invent skills, and it cannot ignore text without logging why.
So it is actively preventing the AI from making leaps of logic.
Exactly. And because your PII is shielded during this entire extraction and mapping phase, the risk of demographic assumptions or historical data correlations influencing the initial evaluation is drastically reduced.
Because it just doesn't have the data to be biased about.
Right. The system is fundamentally designed to evaluate the what and the how of your career, completely blinded to the who.
It is acting like an incredibly disciplined, objective proxy. It strips away the things that historically poison your name, maybe the specific pedigree of the university you attended, gaps in employment that might trigger a human recruiter's internal assumptions.
Exactly.
And it just looks at the structural architecture of what you are actually capable of doing.
Yes, and it does this because the developers recognize that recruitment technology operates in a high-risk environment.
Definitely.
This isn't a recommendation engine telling you what pair of shoes to buy next, you know? It is a system determining your access to economic opportunity.
It's your life.
Right. By separating the conceptual value of your skills from your identifiable personal data, they are creating a structural privacy shield. It protects you as a candidate while still allowing the employer to operate efficiently at scale.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Your data has been successfully and safely ingested. The AI has extracted the underlying concepts of your career. Now comes the stage that usually makes candidates feel like they're being put through an industrial meat grinder. The screen.
The dreaded screen.
But in the environment of the executive lodge, this is where BAIR's absolute obsession with standards actually transforms from a corporate compliance exercise into your biggest personal asset.
Yeah, we noted earlier that BAIR's primary internal persona is the steward of standards. During the screening stage, the system operates on a doctrine they call hiring by the book.
And the book in this context isn't some casual set of internal HR guidelines, is it?
No, not at all. It is deeply rooted in rigorous international regulatory frameworks.
The technical documents are incredibly specific about this. They state that the screening process must be entirely auditable, strictly checked for data correlation errors, and highly aligned with the EU AI Act.
Right.
Now, for listeners who might not spend their weekends reading European technology regulations, the EU AI Act is a massive piece of legislation that specifically targets AI used in employment. It classifies it explicitly as high risk.
And what's fascinating here is the strategic approach BAIR takes. Instead of trying to obfuscate their technology to avoid this high-risk classification,
Which is what everyone else does.
right, or lobbying for loopholes like many tech startups do, BAIR leans directly into the highest possible friction.
They embrace it.
Exactly. The system aligns its core architecture with ISO 42001, which is the newly established international standard for AI management systems, and the NIST AI RMF, which is the risk management framework developed by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Okay, let's break those down because they sound like dry acronyms, but they're actually incredibly difficult hurdles to clear.
Very difficult.
If a company is claiming ISO 42001 alignment, what does that actually mean for the software that's evaluating my application?
It means the software cannot be a black box. ISO 42001 requires an organization to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an AI management system.
Okay.
Practically, this means every algorithm used to score or sort your conceptual skills must have documented risk assessments, continuous monitoring for performance drift, and clear accountability structures.
Wow, so they have to constantly prove it works fairly.
Yes. And the NIST framework adds another layer, requiring systems to be valid, reliable, safe, secure, resilient, accountable, and transparent.
But how does all of that high-level regulatory alignment translate to me, sitting at my kitchen table, hoping to get an interview for this job?
That's the key question.
The sources talk about the system enforcing what they call execution gates.
This is where the abstract regulation becomes concrete software architecture. An execution gate is a hard-coded, predefined point in the workflow where the algorithmic processing must literally halt.
It just stops.
It stops. The system cannot proceed autonomously past that node. It stops, logs its current data state, and requires a specific authenticated input or verification to continue.
Ah, okay, so it is physically impossible for it to be a runaway train.
Hmm.
You can't just ingest 10,000 resumes at 9 a.m. and spit out 3 job offers at 9:01 a.m.
Far from it. The documentation explicitly states their philosophy here. Governance isn't the brake, it's the steering.
That's a great line.
Isn't it? For you, the candidate, this means your application is being subjected to rigorous, system-level fairness checks at every single step of its journey. The speed of the BAIR system doesn't come from letting an AI make split-second, unchecked decisions in the dark.
The speed comes from having incredibly well-built infrastructure.
Exactly.
That perfectly illustrates one of the BAIR's most famous internal axioms, what they call the final rule.
Oh.
It goes, infrastructure is value, doctrine is value, distribution is value, trust is value. Everything else is noise.
Everything else is noise.
The reason they can screen applications quickly while still adhering to the EU AI Act and ISO standards is that the train tracks are perfectly heavily laid.
Right.
The system doesn't have to stop and compute how to be fair for every single candidate. Fairness and compliance are engineered into the steel of the tracks, into the execution gates themselves.
And this connects to a very powerful shared phrase found across the BAIR entities. Intelligence is the ingredient. Governance is the recipe. Trust is the meal.
I really want to focus on that culinary analogy because it clarifies the technology so beautifully.
It does.
If you are the candidate, you are being served a reliable, fair process precisely because the recipe is so strict. The AI's ability to use natural language processing to parse your skills, that is the intelligence. That is the raw ingredient.
Right.
But raw ingredients, no matter how high quality, can cause severe food poisoning if they aren't handled correctly.
That is a highly accurate way to frame the danger of AI. An unchecked, purely intelligent AI parsing historical hiring data will almost immediately learn to replicate historical flaws.
It's guaranteed.
It will filter out candidates based on flawed correlations like what zip code they live in or the phrasing of their extracurricular activities because it assumes historical hiring patterns represent ground truth accuracy.
Right. So the governance, the ISO 42001 protocols, the NIST risk management framework, the hard-coded execution gates, the strict PII privacy shield, that entire apparatus is the recipe.
Exactly.
It dictates exactly how that raw algorithmic intelligence is allowed to be utilized, how it must be prepared, and when a human chef has to step in and physically taste the soup before it leaves the kitchen.
Great analogy.
And the final result, the meal you are served, is trust. You can actually trust the outcome of the screening phase because you know the recipe is legally binding and rigorously audited.
Which leads us directly to the most critical, high-stakes juncture of the entire candidate journey.
The moment of truth.
Right. The AI has intelligently extracted the concepts of your skills. It has navigated through the heavily governed execution gates. It has evaluated your conceptual profile against the requirements of the role. Now, a final decision must be made.
Do you advance to the final interview? Do you get the job offer? Who or what actually pulls the trigger?
And this brings us to the next operational stage, the decision. Because despite all this incredible high-level technology we've been discussing, one of the most ironclad binding guardrails of the entire BAIR system is this single sentence. A human stays accountable.
A human stays accountable.
It is a profound philosophical and operational stance for an AI company to take. Their mandate is, let the machine remove drudgery so people do judgment.
That's powerful.
The machine is allowed to organize the massive volumes of data. It extracts the skill concepts, it mathematically measures those concepts against the job requirements, and it surfaces the highest probability matches.
Okay.
But the ultimate judgment, called the actual decision to hire or reject, rests entirely on human shoulders.
Now I have to push back again. Because we see this all the time in aviation and medicine. It's called automation bias.
Right, I know where you're going with this.
If an incredibly smart AI hands a human recruiter a list and says, these are the top 3 candidates, isn't the human just going to mindlessly click approve? Doesn't the human in the loop just become a rubber stamp for the algorithm?
That is the exact vulnerability the system is designed to prevent through what they call the reconstruction principle.
The reconstruction principle.
Yes. The documents define this principle very clearly. Nothing is trusted because it happened. Everything is trusted because it is reconstructible.
Nothing is trusted because it happened. What does that actually mean in practice for the human recruiter?
It means the interface does not just give the recruiter a thumbs up or thumbs down button next to your name.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. Under the reconstruction principle, if a human decides to hire you or to reject you, that human decision must be fully reconstructible through an immutable audit trail. The human in the loop must be able to point to the exact, specific, evidence-backed data points that led to that specific judgment. They cannot just reject you and write, I didn't get a good feeling about this one.
Or they don't feel like a cultural fit.
Exactly. They have to show the underlying math of their decision.
If we look at how that impacts you as the candidate, it is revolutionary. It completely eliminates the black box rejection.
Completely.
In standard traditional hiring, if you are rejected, you rarely, if ever, know why. Did you lack a specific technical proficiency? Was it a budget issue? Did the hiring manager just have a terrible commute that morning and take it out on your application?
Yes, you usually just receive that agonizing generic template email. You know the one. While your qualifications are impressive, we have decided to move forward with candidates whose experience more closely aligns with our current needs.
It's the worst. It gives you zero actionable feedback.
It's maddening.
It really is.
But this raises an important question. How does this reconstructibility change the fundamental power dynamic between the employer and the candidate?
Yeah.
Because applying for a job, historically, feels a lot like begging a feudal lord for an audience. You have no leverage and no visibility.
It fundamentally alters that dynamic by injecting an unprecedented level of dignity and transparency into the transaction.
Dignity is the perfect word for it.
The system employs a doctrine they refer to as a clean hands power play. The rule dictates that the BAIR system must never be a weapon, never a bluff, never argue present reality, then the remediation path.
Present reality. That is such a heavy phrase.
It really is.
It means the system isn't trying to trick you. It isn't subjecting you to bizarre, high-pressure puzzle questions to see how you sweat.
No more brain teasers about how many golf balls fit in a 747.
Exactly. It is looking strictly at the reconstructible evidence of your capabilities and presenting the objective reality of how those capabilities map to the specific needs of the job.
And if you fall short of the requirement, it isn't framed as a personal failing or a subjective rejection of your worth. It's an objective mathematical reality based on the reconstructible requirements of the role.
Oh.
And crucially, there is no bluffing allowed from the employer's side either. The evidence trail keeps the company entirely honest about why they are making their choices.
It makes me think of an analogy. Imagine you're taking a highly complex math test.
Okay.
In a traditional job interview scenario, you hand in your test, and a week later the teacher just yells, "Fail," from down the hallway.
And you just have to accept it.
Right. You don't get your paper back. You don't know what you got wrong. With BAIR, it is like the teacher sits down next to you, slides the test paper across the desk, points to the page, and says, "Look right here on line 4, you forgot to carry the 2.
Wow, yeah.
The underlying logic of your equation was sound, but this specific calculation was off, which threw off the final result. It is the massive difference between a subjective judgment on your human worth and an objective evaluation of your current state.
And that concept, the evaluation of your current state, is vital to understand because it means your interaction with the system doesn't just abruptly end with a binary yes or no.
Right, it's not a dead end.
The decision transitions seamlessly into the final stage of the BR workflow.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle: audit, feedback, and the trust bank.
So the decision has been made, but your relationship with the executive lodge, with that calm bear in the tracksuit, doesn't necessarily end when the role is filled.
No, it doesn't.
The final operational stage is the audit, which loops right back around into your ongoing professional development.
Now, from the employer's operational perspective, this audit phase is mandatory to ensure they hired fairly, legally, and in total compliance with frameworks like the EU AI Act. It maintains the integrity of their data systems.
Sure.
But what is remarkable is how the system is designed to provide massive ongoing value to you, the candidate, regardless of whether you received an offer.
The internal documents outline a very specific content architecture and interaction ratio for the BR persona. It's 80-15-5.
80-15-5.
When I first read this matrix, it completely blew my mind.
It is a radically different approach to building a talent pool. The matrix dictates that 80% of BAIR's output, its communication and interaction with the community of candidates, must be pure, unasked for value.
Pure value.
Yes. It is dedicated heavily to career development, teaching AI literacy, and governance education. This is what the developers call building the trust bank.
So 80% of the time you interact with this system, the BAIR is just teaching you things for free.
For free, yeah.
Then 15% of the content is dedicated to soft positioning, showing off their internal programs like the library or the CQV guide, using them as teaching tools to show how they operate.
And then the remaining 5%.
Only 5% of the time is there a direct call to action, an explicit apply here or work with us, trust first, promotion a distant second.
What this means for you, practically navigating this workflow, is that Barry is an active educator. The mission of the system, explicitly stated in the Character Bible, is not merely to fill an empty desk chair.
What does it say?
The stated mission is to make great hiring and great careers inevitable.
Inevitable. That is such a powerful, confident word to use in software design. Build assets, build systems, build inevitability.
Yeah.
So even if you are not hired on day one, the system is actively designed to increase your value. The documents detail how BAIR offers specific career development advice tailored for the AI era.
It provides concrete signals for professional growth.
It actively teaches AI literacy, for example. It'll explain the implications of the EU AI Act to you in 60 seconds so you actually understand your legal rights regarding your own data.
You might experience BAIR teaching you from his seminar materials, pulling concepts from the library, or walking you through the CQV guide.
The ultimate goal is that you leave the process significantly more literate about technology, data governance, and your own career trajectory than when you first walked into the woods.
You are never, ever left empty-handed.
So what does this all mean for you, the person just looking for a good job?
Let's summarize this incredible journey.
You walked into the digital woods and were greeted by a calm, track-suited bear at a fireside lodge, immediately lowering the stress of the interaction.
Right.
You handed over your professional history, And instead of exposing your personal identity to immediate historical correlations, the system threw up a rigid privacy shield, extracting only the mathematical conceptual value of your skills.
Your application was then screened not by a reckless black box algorithm, but by a heavily governed, legally compliant set of execution gates that forced the AI to prove its math.
Then, a human being, and only a human being, made a fully accountable decision based on a reconstructible evidence trail.
And finally, regardless of the outcome, you were given actionable feedback and free education to build your future career.
It is a complete inversion of the traditional broken hiring model. It replaces the isolating anxiety of the unknown digital void with the comfort of a rigorously governed, highly engineered system.
BAIR's core mantra, build assets, build systems. Build inevitability ultimately serves to protect, respect, and elevate the job seeker.
And as AI becomes utterly ubiquitous in every single workplace, knowing what good, heavily governed AI actually looks like is a massive advantage for you.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't just hope for systems that treat your career data with this level of reconstructible respect.
Yeah.
You should expect it. You should demand it.
The contrast is stark. Once you understand the mechanics, once you know that an infrastructure can be built to shield your identity, remove administrative drudgery, enforce rigorous standards, and mandate human accountability well, the old way of throwing your resume into the ocean becomes entirely unacceptable.
It really does.
Yeah.
Which brings us right back to where we started, that dark digital ocean and the fear of the faceless machine.
Yeah.
After unpacking the absolute obsession with governance in the BAIR system, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. If an AI system can be governed so strictly, if it can perfectly extract and reconstruct every single variable that makes you professionally valuable without relying on demographic assumptions, and if it mandates that a human being must be able to justify every single decision with hard, auditable evidence,
Where does that leave us?
well, might the fairest, most objectively human job interview of your entire life actually be conducted by a governed machine in the woods?